like, and make sure to engage in comments. Also, share this video to your friends and story lovers, and click on the subscribe button on the screen to subscribe to Mortifex for more real horror stories like this. The first time Noah stepped into the 81st floor, he felt it immediately. Something was wrong. It wasn't anything obvious. The air didn't suddenly turn cold, and the lights didn't flicker ominously. But there was a feeling, an oppressive weight that settled on his chest, something that made his breath hitch for just a second longer than normal. He brushed it off, shaking his head. He was exhausted. That had to be it. Working the graveyard shift as a janitor in a massive, nearly empty office building could mess with anyone's head. Noah had only taken this job because it paid decently, and there weren't many requirements. Just clean, take out the trash, and make sure everything was in order before the morning crew came in. The building was a towering corporate monstrosity, 81 floors of glass, steel, and polished marble, owned by some faceless financial firm that had more money than it knew what to do with. During the day, the place was packed with executives, analysts, and assistants rushing from meeting to meeting. But after 10 p.m., it was a ghost town. The only people left were security guards and the janitorial staff. For weeks, his routine had been the same. He started from the bottom and worked his way up, vacuuming, dusting, wiping down desks. By the time he reached the 70th floor, he was already halfway through his shift. Most nights were uneventful, just hours of monotonous cleaning, with the occasional coffee break in the janitor's closet. But the 81st floor? It wasn't on his usual route. He had no reason to go up there. No one did. One night, though, he noticed something odd. He had been emptying the trash on the 80th floor when he heard a faint noise above him, like footsteps, slow, deliberate. His first thought was that it was security doing a random patrol. But then he remembered the security team barely ever went above the 50th floor. No one was supposed to be up there. Curious, he took the elevator up, stepping out into the eerily silent hallway. The lights buzzed softly overhead, casting a dull white glow over the sleek, empty cubicles. Unlike the lower floors, where papers and office supplies were scattered on desks, this floor was pristine, too pristine. Desks perfectly arranged, chairs neatly pushed in, computers off, as if the place had been abandoned mid-shift and never touched again. He walked past a row of glass-walled offices, his footsteps echoing through the quiet space. And then he saw it. The one office at the very end of the hallway, door slightly ajar, the only one that wasn't locked. A chill crawled up his spine. He knew he should turn back. Whatever this was, it wasn't his problem. But something about that open door, it felt like an invitation or a challenge. Heart pounding, he stepped inside. The office looked normal at first. Large mahogany desk, leather chair, a few framed photos on the wall. But the moment voice crossed the threshold, the atmosphere shifted. The air was thick, almost heavy, like stepping into a room with no ventilation. His eyes flicked to the nameplate on the desk, Richard Halloway, Senior Vice President. The name meant nothing to him, but the thin layer of dust over everything told him no one had used this office in a long time. And then he saw the notebook. It sat perfectly centered on the desk, its leather cover slightly worn. Unlike everything else in the room, it was dust-free, as if someone had been using it recently. Slowly, cautiously, he reached out and flipped it open. The pages were filled with hurried, scrawled writing, dates running down the margins. He skimmed the first few lines, his brow furrowing. They told me to stop asking questions, but I can't. Something is wrong with this floor. People disappear. I hear them at night. I hear them in the walls. Noah swallowed hard. The walls. He looked up, eyes darting to the corners of the room, to the ceiling tiles. Was someone watching him? And then, a sudden bang from outside the office. He spun around, heart hammering. The door. It had slammed shut. And when he reached for the handle, it wouldn't budge. He was trapped. Panic surged through him like ice in his veins. He yanked the door handle again, harder this time, but it didn't give. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier. And then, the whispering started. At first, it was barely audible. A faint murmur, like someone speaking just beyond his range of hearing. Then it grew louder, surrounding him. He spun around, searching for the source. But the office was empty. The whispers swirled, overlapping, whispering things he couldn't quite understand. But there was one thing that stood out. One word. Noah. His name. His breath came in short, sharp gasps. He backed up against the desk, his heart slamming against his ribs. The notebook. It was still open, and something was changing. The ink on the page. It was moving. Noah watched, horrified, as new words began to form, as if an invisible hand was writing right in front of him. Look behind you. He froze. Every muscle in his body locked up. His mind screamed at him not to do it. But something forced him to turn his head, and when he did, he wished he never had. There, standing in the corner of the room, was a figure, tall, unmoving, its face obscured by shadow, but its eyes, those gleaming, unnatural eyes, locked onto his. The figure stepped forward, its movements slow and deliberate. Noah's breath caught in his throat. He wanted to run, but his body refused to obey. It wasn't just fear holding him in place. It was something stronger, something unnatural. The air around him thickened, pressing against his skin like invisible hands keeping him still. Then, the lights flickered, and for a brief second, the entire room plunged into darkness. When they came back on, the figure was closer, too close. Noah could see it now, tall and gaunt, its limbs unnaturally long, its face pale and expressionless except for its eyes. Those eyes weren't human. They glowed with an eerie, otherworldly light locked onto him, as if seeing straight through his soul. Noah tried to scream, but no sound came out. His throat felt like it had closed up, like something was actively silencing him. The whispers intensified, swirling around him, growing louder and more urgent. Then suddenly, the voice in the notebook changed. The ink shifted again, forming new words right before his eyes. Run now, before it's too late. The paralysis broke. Noah bolted for the door, twisting the handle with all his strength. This time, it gave way. He stumbled out into the hallway, his breath ragged, his legs barely carrying him as he sprinted toward the elevator. The whispers followed, growing into distorted, echoing laughter. He slammed his hand against the elevator button, watching the numbers slowly descend. Too slow, too damn slow. His eyes darted down the hallway. Nothing. but he knew it was coming. He could feel it. Then, the elevator doors slid open. Noah lunged inside, jamming the close button repeatedly. The doors inched shut, the gap narrowing. Just as they were about to fully close, something slammed into them from the other side. A shadowy hand, long skeletal fingers, splayed against the metal. Noah screamed as the doors shut completely, the elevator lurching downward. He collapsed against the wall, his chest heaving, sweat dripping down his face. His mind raced. What the hell had he just seen? What was that thing? More importantly, how long had it been there? The elevator dinged as it reached the lobby. Noah practically fell out, his legs shaky. The night security guard looked up from his desk, frowning. "You okay, kid?" the guard asked, raising an eyebrow. Noah could barely form words. He turned to look back at the elevator, half expecting the doors to burst open, for that thing to come crawling out after him. But nothing happened. The building was silent, normal, like nothing had ever happened at all. I need to quit," Noah gasped, shaking his head. "I can't. Something's wrong with this place." The guard let out a dry chuckle. "Yeah, tell me something I don't know." Noah's eyes widened. "Wait, what?" The guard sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Look, kid, you're not the first one to see things up there. You won't be the last." He leaned in, his voice dropping lower. "That floor, it's been empty for years. But every once in a while, people hear things, see things. And the ones who go poking around..." Noah swallowed hard. "What happens to them?" The guard hesitated, then shrugged. "Some quit, some disappear, and some..." His eyes darkened. "Some don't leave at all." Noah felt ice creep through his veins. He had been lucky tonight. But the whispers, the notebook, that thing, none of it felt finished. He turned to leave, ready to get as far away from the building as possible. But as he stepped outside, his phone buzzed in his pocket. A new message from an unknown number. Noah hesitated, dread curling in his stomach as he unlocked the screen. His breath caught in his throat as he read the message. "You shouldn't have left." And then, right below it, a new message began typing on its own. The typing stopped. One final word appeared on the screen. "Come back." And just as Noah looked up, across the street, in the reflection of the glass building opposite him, he saw those glowing eyes staring right at him. Click on the subscribe button on the screen to subscribe to Mortifex for more real and true stories like this.